back to this I-24 News Evening Edition. This is the Daily Debate. Well, 6 years ago today, an explosion shook a Damascus neighborhood. Well, soon after, it became apparent that Imad Mughniyeh, the leader of Hezbollah's military intelligence and security branch, was eliminated. Within the Western intelligence community, Imad Mughniyeh was known as a top target because of his planning and involvement in several terror attacks on Israeli, Jewish, and Western targets all around the world. Well, Israel never claimed responsibility for the assassination, but has been widely implicated. Well, joining me is Gad Shimron, a former Mossad operative and author of Mossad Exodus. Thank you for joining us here tonight.
Good evening.
And Barak Ben-Zur, expert on strategic intelligence and counter-terrorism, and a lecturer at the Interdisciplinary Center in Herzliya. Thank you as well for joining us here tonight.
Good evening.
For
Thank you so much.
Debate. It's great to have you both here. As you're aware of the topic here, we're focusing on the assassination and the greater implications it's had here in the region, in the world, and specifically for Hezbollah. After his assassination here 6 years ago, Hezbollah was considered, immediately afterwards, was considered to have lost some power, but would you argue that that's true or not true?
I think it is, because, I think it was Charles de Gaulle who said that graveyards are full of people who are, indispensable or irreplaceable. Usually it's not true. Everybody is replaceable. But in the case of Imad Mughniyeh, who was, you said he was sought about in several countries. I think he was on the wanted list of something like 42 countries in the world. And in his case, I think his loss was a real big shock for the Hezbollah, not only from operational point of view, but also the fact that he was assassinated in Damascus, and we are talking about Damascus before the civil war, when if you remember, when the Syrian intelligence service was really controlling the city.
A much more stable situation than in Damascus. Do you agree or disagree, Mr. Ben-Zur?
Well, maybe for a short period of time, there is importance from the aspect of morale, maybe some of the know-how, maybe some of the connection that he had with the Iranian regime and so on. But if you are dealing with groups not like Bader Meinhof or Action Direct or groups of this kind that are depending on one figure that is initiating the activity of the group, and he is the major power that is moving the group on, well, here it's something completely different. They lost commanders in Syria in the war, and they lost Abbas Moussaoui in February 1992. And they lost one of the major experts in assassination in Beirut some 3-4 months ago. And nothing is changed by the organization.
These are like top soldiers and commanders, but not necessarily ideological fuelers.
Well, there are some levels of looking and analyzing this kind of situation. The first one is what is the strategic and the policy impact, and what is the operational and tactical one. Sometimes when we are going to such an operation, if it is in a part of a large campaign against the group, let's say like targeting Ahmad Ja'bari, it was in the middle of a campaign against the Hamas, and it was very important to target him because he was the commander and he was the leading of the military branch of the Hamas. And once in this campaign of fighting against Hamas, you are doing such an operation is very effective, because in the certain campaign, in the certain battlefield, in the certain operation that you are conducting against the Hamas, and doing this operation against the person that is the major leader of the military branch, well, it is very important to put him aside. In this case, I don't know. There are a variety of other components that you should take in consideration. If we had, let's say, access to information, to intelligence, what is the preferable? To kill the guy or to have the contact from the point of view of intelligence in order to derail future plans of this organization?
Movement versus
of course.
Well, Hezbollah vowed retaliation for this strike on Mughniyeh. Do you believe that we've seen them attempt that already, or have they sidelined their revenge?
The problem with Hezbollah is that, first of all, they lost a real commander. I mean, Imad Mughniyeh, I agree with what you said before, because Mughniyeh is not like Fathi Shkaki, who was the leader of the Islamic Jihad. Once you cut off his head, it was in 1995 in the island of Malta, he parted this world. the organization ceased to exist for a couple of years. But it's true Hezbollah is a much bigger organization. But I think that Mughniyeh was such a charismatic and such an able commander that the fact that he is away also had a lot of effect on the will of the Hezbollah to avenge the assassination of Mughniyeh. Because, we have seen in the last few years Hezbollah is losing power, not only because of Mughniyeh, but also because of the circumstances in the Middle East, right, and the involvement of Hezbollah in the civil war, which I think, when we look back 10 years from today, where is maybe the point that Hezbollah started to decline its effectiveness, maybe it's due to this decision of Nasrallah to get involved so deeply in Syria. We don't know. But the fact is, the proof is in the pudding. We are 6 years after the assassination, and Mughniyeh's death is still not avenged from Hezbollah point of view.
What about the attack in Burgas in Bulgaria here in 2012? Was that a sign? It's a very soft target there, Israeli tourists on a bus. Is that a sign of weakness versus strength for an organization like Hezbollah?
I think it shows that, I don't want, first of all, any victim of a terror organization is a terrible thing. But in retrospect, in what we are used in the world in the 21st century, this attack is really very minor. It's not something that the Hezbollah will regard as the summit of its ability.
Professor Ben-Zur, do you agree with this perspective on the 6 years that have passed without
That's right.
Revenge?
But we have to look what happened in the world in the last decade, because the change in the world is very simple. All the nations are, let's say, united in fighting terrorism. You can see in almost every case, like it happened in England in 2006, you have coordination and cooperation between the Pakistanis, Americans, and the British in order to derail terror attacks. And every picture of every suspect is moving from corner to corner of the globe, and the exchange of information between services is very quick, is very efficient, and you can derail most of the terror attacks that are planned in those countries that have, let's say, efficient security apparatus. This is the very reason that they are going to Mumbai, they are going to Azerbaijan, they are going to places that are, let's say, somehow weak countries with the weakness of the domestic security services, and because of that they can reach from time to time, but in most of the cases, because there is exchange of information, there is a cooperation between nations, this is the very reason that they have much more difficulties. You can see that some of their attempts were somehow ridiculous. The attempt to assassinate the Saudi Arabia ambassador in Washington. You can see how this kind of modus operandi was exposed so quickly and so deeply, and it brought the guy that investigated the case to the Iranian Republic Guard. And some of the cases that operatives came to the scene of the operation, they were exposed in minutes and arrested by the local security services. Even they assume that this will not happen. So because of this kind of change in the ecology of awareness against terror activities, well, they have much more difficulties to carry out such kind of terror attacks.
But one shouldn't be lax. I remember in August 2001, there were reports from the United States that bin Laden is hiding in some cavern in Pakistan, Afghanistan. He's cut off from his main supporters, etc., and nobody knows what actually he's doing with him, because it seems to be that he's weakening. And then a month later we had the 9/11. So laxity is something very, very, very dangerous in this world of terrorism we are talking about. And also I would like to point out and support what he said, what Professor Barak said, that, I call it the frustration in averting. The fact that so many terror acts were derailed by this growing international cooperation of the intelligence community it will always land in page 6 at the bottom, because you read some item about
but attacks averted.
There was a plan to bomb a tanker somewhere in a very busy port, which could have, of course, because it never happened. So it's page 6, 50 words at the back. That's a problem. That's a frustration of derailing terror acts.
Well, you mentioned bin Laden here is a name that's come up, similar, I don't know if you could argue similar, but another example of a targeted assassination here against someone seen as key and elemental in the network of terrorist activities, as Mughniyeh was then. This concept of targeted assassinations, and whether it's effective or not, I think both of you have mentioned examples where it's been more effective in certain circumstances than in others. Do you agree that this is a tactic that should be continued, or that we've just seen the beginning of, perhaps?
It reminds me of chunt. Chunt is a Jewish traditional
slow cook food.
Slow cook for Sabbath. You know what you put in, you don't know what you take out. Same thing with those assassinations. It's something you cannot quantify. I mean, the case of Imad Mughniyeh is a good example of something that slowed down Hezbollah. Bin Laden also, no doubt, it was a major blow to the Al Qaeda, even if Bin Laden wasn't very active in the last few years. But again, there are cases mentioned here before. February is a very bad month for Hezbollah leaders, because in February '92, Sheikh Moussawi, who was the founder of Hezbollah, was assassinated, killed in South Lebanon. And what did we receive in his place? A man called Sheikh Nasrallah. So you don't always know what will come out of the oven, including the ingredients you put in. You never know.
Especially in this region. Do you agree with the points he's made?
Well, I'm calling this part of the operational sector a special operation or covert operation. There is a significant and a very important difference between, let's say, targeting using drones and collecting information by, let's say, easy sources of information that you are completing in a very short time the information about the target, and in a matter of minutes you are launching the drone.
Snap
and
decisions.
Here we have another operative brought down by this kind of operation. But I'm not sure, I don't know who is standing behind Mughniyeh, as I don't know who is standing behind Abu Jihad in 1988 or other operation of this kind, Mabhouch and so on. But the main, let's say, common frame for those operations, that they are a special operation. The meaning of that you are planning it for a long period of time, you are using a lot of resources, and you are using your best people for this kind of operation. And even in this level of calculation, of cost-benefit, what you are doing with your most skillful and the best of our fighters and our special units, this is a question that we should ask ourselves. Sometimes you are asking yourself if it is preferable to use it for intelligence, let's say, missions, or operative missions, because you don't have the resources to use it for both of them. And this is just one of the dilemmas. The much higher dilemma is the political and the strategic dilemma, like the dilemma that stood in front of President Eisenhower. He should decide if he is sending in May 1960 the U-2 in order to take another round of pictures over Russia, USSR. And he already knew, or the establishment already knew, that they already developed anti-aerial missiles, SA-2, that are capable to bring down the plane. But the pressure from the people that ask for much more information, and let's do it another more time, brought him to the decision to send, and we know the result of this decision. This is the dilemma. This is unchanged, because once you are doing operations like...
Thank you to both of you. Sorry to cut you off here. Appreciate both of you and your insights here on the issue here.
Thank you.
That wraps up the Daily Debate for the evening edition. Stay tuned after the headlines for the one-on-one.